This is a sewer commissioner meeting. I'd like to open it this evening. I'm William Watson.
Brian Donahoe.
Okay. Elaine won't be here tonight, so we're just gonna kind of go over some overview of the public hearing that's going to be coming up with the sewer commissioners and general public on rate increases. David, you want to discuss a little bit of this?
Yeah, well, I guess the first item we'd be looking to do, seeing we're gonna be doing this announcement of rates, and we're gonna have a discussion with whoever would like to come and get involved with the public hearing. So we're looking to hold a public hearing on October 2nd at 5 p.m. in room 200, which is
The big room.
The big room. And go over some of our issues with our budget and shortfalls on one, our budget, or two, our debt. So we haven't had a rate increase in, as far as I can remember, something like 2010, sound about accurate?
It's been quite a while, yeah.
So it's been 14 years without a rate increase. We've obviously had a huge increase in the last 14 years, but everything from payroll to chemicals to electricity to vehicle costs to pump costs. I mean, from front to back, everything has gone up. And especially in the more recent history, the electrical costs and chemicals.
Right.
So without beating a dead horse, we have a budget for FY25 for our operating costs. And I'll give you these. If you look at the FY25 number here written in pen.
Yep.
Right, that's 1.8. I'm reading upside down. 1,852,924.
Yep.
Then we have an operating budget shortfall because of our revenue. We have a shortfall in our operating budget of $506,098. So what we've decided in town meeting is to allocate some of our article money to offset that $500,000 shortfall.
Okay.
So we've allocated, it was 600,000.
601, 327.
Thank you for Jean. We've basically covered that shortfall for this year. We
Which
obviously
is 25.
for the FY25 budget. We obviously have some debt shortfall because of the third and fourth tank not being completely committed for or sold as a result of the water moratorium and everything else in town. We're seeing now, without those betterments flowing in, a debt shortfall, which is the second number there, is 419,221. So the other piece that's going to fall into play is at the very bottom, the leaching fields. The debt on the leaching field is going to be starting July 2025. So it'll fall in the 2026 budget, 426,644 for that.
Okay.
So we've got some pretty significant shortfalls.
Oh, down, yeah, okay, this is just, yeah.
Yeah.
Something just with the.
Yeah. So between the top pieces and the shortfall and the bottom piece and the shortfall, our overall need to cover our operating budget and our debt is going to be basically a total budget of 1.8 million. The debt shortfall on the tanks, 419,000. The leaching fields of the 426 gives an overall need that we have to meet is 2.699789.
Yeah.
So
2.7 million.
roughly,
Yeah. Okay.
So we've had some discussions with the accounting department,
Mhm.
Keith, and the legal department to see if there's a way we could take some of the burden of additional costs and kind of put it through, say, as a tax process through the collector's office and on the taxes. But if we don't do it with a whole for the town,
Mhm.
we can't do it for just the 653 users on that system. So it looks like we might be tied to the fact that we have to tie this all in to our user fees and our consumption fees. And not being able to absorb the short-term need
Okay.
by going through any other scenario. There was talk with Elaine last week that possibly we could do something like this and go through a tax function. So that should be written off as a tax write-off in your taxes because it's part of your taxes with the town. But on our initial discussions, it doesn't look like that's the direction it can go.
Okay.
There's gonna be some further investigation to see if we can get something resolved on that end. But as of this afternoon, that's kind of where we stand. That it looks like our expenses are gonna have to be covered at this point through consumption and user fees. Don't know if you guys have any thoughts or concerns. You seem like you had maybe something
I'm just waiting.
to add. Jeannie and myself have kind of added some different verbiage, but we're at least looking to get approval from the board tonight on this letter, basically saying that, you know, we have this meeting, and I'll give you a read it, but looking to basically just get approval on the letter announcing the meeting and what we'll be discussing.
Yeah, you put a very important part in here that we're repairing and replacing and rebuilding existing infrastructure for 25 years of use. I mean, that stuff that had come to fruition and now has to be, all had to be upgraded at the same time. So that's also part of that bill. Or part of
The expenses.
the expenses, yes. For phase one and phase two. So all that stuff had to be upgraded sooner or later. Okay.
So,
Brian, anything you want to add on to that at all?
no, I mean, I have several questions. October 2nd, it's 2 weeks away. And just hold that for a second. I just want to make sure I understand this. So when you have debt shortfall up here on that FY25,
Mhm.
is that capital cost debt only?
That debt shortfall for FY25, the 419, 221,
Right.
that's related to the upgrade of the plans.
Right. So it's capital cost related only. It's not, and the number above it, 506 is operating costs.
Yes, shortfall for the operating budget. And you'll see, just as a side note, we collected 1.347828 or whatever that is.
1353074.
Oh, sorry,
Betterments.
that's what we collected in betterments.
No, I'm
But
sorry,
FY 24,
consumption, user fees.
This is user fees, 1.5. That's
yeah. 1353074, do you see that?
Yep.
So that would have been what we've collected, and you can see what our budget needs are for operating. Is
Okay.
1.8.
1.8,
So-
1.3.
So it's basically 500,000, almost another money.
Yeah, that 506098,
So that's the O&M shortfall.
yes,
Yearly
yes. But FY 25,
for FY25. Right? So then, make sure I have the numbers with you.
And just so you see, that shortfall, right, the 506, when you look as far as just last year, that shortfall, I'm not seeing it because I'm upside down. That
332.
shortfall was 332. So even just in the last year, it's gone from a shortfall of 332 to 506. It's really $180,000 difference just in 1 year
And
in
that's,
terms of increased costs.
and that's, just so I understand, that's due to what? What, that was the accounting issue, right?
There's the electric bill, the chemicals, the testing. We had a couple of pumps that we ordered. And a couple of contracts like Casella, Organics.
Plus
The
normal pay raises.
So I guess I'm looking for the number, that additional big number on the cost to the town's cost to us.
The allocated costs,
Is that in there too?
Oh.
it's in here. So the
Yes.
344 is
So,
town allocated.
Town
costs.
allocated cost was 312, and now it's gone up to 340.
All right, so it didn't go up that much. Then that, I was thinking we had a much bigger jump than that.
Which, well, that alone is what, $32,000 increase,
Yeah, I mean, it's,
you know?
okay. So most of it's equipment,
So
chemicals, that kind of thing.
electricity.
Some of it's labor.
Yeah, small portion, I think 3% on labor. But the big ticket items, every 3 years we go out to contract for sludge. So that was all reevaluated with new fuel costs being much more than they were 3, 4, 5, 6 years ago when the last contract was done. So disposal cost of sludge is pretty big. That's one of our bigger ticket items. The electricity
It's
is our
13,000 to almost 19,000.
the electricity cost has gone up substantially. So it's a cumulative effect, but essentially, you look
We're
at
talking $500,000, right? That's the number I got in my head.
that way short, yeah. And just going up 180,000 for the same items a year ago. You can see that 10 years ago when we set the rates, you know, and now every year we're just climbing up incrementally. So it's time, obviously.
No, it would have been nicer if we gradually got into this 14 years ago. And, you know,
And things
in anticipation.
might have been different at that point.
Yeah.
There's a lot that goes into those pieces and
Mhm.
There's a lot of reasons.
there's
10
a
years,
lot.
10 reasons.
There's a lot.
We're in the middle, or just at the end of a recession that killed everybody financially. That was 2007, 8, 9, 10, and it started to recover, and then it didn't really. So I mean,
To help out during COVID and everything else, this was before my time anyway, but to raise rates when everyone was struggling
Right.
has
That
always
was the
been a
right time.
challenge. And here we are. We're at a point now that we have no choice
Mhm.
but to do it. And yes, it would have been nice to have a gradual process,
Mhm.
but here we are at a crossroads because I think without the tanks being filled too, that would have given more users, which would be more consumption. And that consumption would have dropped down the overall costs because they'd be sharing by more consumption.
Right.
So if the third and fourth tank were sold out completely as expected to happen before this water moratorium and some other variables,
Mhm.
economy and whatnot. We actually did a little bit of a rate study to see that those costs would have essentially covered all of this. But now that didn't happen,
Right.
we have new variables where we're all around. But essentially, we have to pay our bills and to have clean water and clean sewer in town. It's not cheap.
you're saying the rates alone would have covered the capital cost too? Or we just talk,
by the additional consumption. And it might have been a small increase on the consumption rates, but not much. Obviously, without those additional users, you're sharing the cost on a smaller scale. So Elaine did a pretty elaborate schedule laying that out. It was fairly straightforward in terms of showing that if we had a further tank full.
yes, we gotta go back to the betterment. Are there more, we asked this question before, betterment, this is all we have, there's no more betterments coming in at this point, right? Okay, so. To me, that's there's gotta be a big number there. That would offset, if we're talking about having user rates,
So for FY 25, transfer from the betterment funds, we'll have 1.750609 coming in from the betterments. So we have the debt, just capital debt, is 2,727,422. And that's, I think I've sent this before to you guys.
yeah, you know, what I'm trying to get my arms around is, this represents 1 year, fiscal 25, amount of money that's we're using. But each year we're getting a
That's
new,
been collected.
right, each year for the next X number of years, we have betterment money that's coming in over time on the 30-year,
Right.
right? So over the next, let's say 5 years, is that close to that 1.3, or you said
1.17 is a very last line item.
okay, so that's for
Betterments.
that this year, right? That's next year.
For FY 25.
And then what would it be?
Then Carol had sent me some other numbers for the betterments, but I had sent them to everybody. I'll double check on that. I don't know those.
Yeah, because the last time I remember I wasn't clear on that sheet. There was, you were going back to Munis or something, and we had to do a bunch of things, so don't have. But let me just, I guess, ask this way. Over the next 6, 7, 8 years, is the betterment money that's coming in staying at about 1 million something? Okay, all right, so.
So from what I gather on that, and I'm not sure if it's the exact question you have, but phase 1 and 2, as those betterments start dropping off, so is that debt. So that's all covered.
Right.
When we look at some of this debt shortfall being addressed here, those are the upgrade and the leaching fields. So those betterments will be with us going forward.
Right, get that.
There's a little bit of a balloon in, is it the FY 25 year? By a little bit. But then after that, it'll drop off slightly and stay pretty steady for the rest of the loan.
Did any of those charts you put together, 'cause I know you went this thing with Munis and looking at the rates and how, did any of those change? Or can we get a final number of, like, the next 30 years? The betterments we know now, the ones that we know now, and we haven't even started to think about adjusting the betterments going forward to adjust for that leaching field. And so that's the delta I'm concerned about.
Yeah, you want to know what the betterment rate should be going forward based on that.
Right.
So Elaine did do a study here. And I think it's in your packet.
Yeah.
I just put this one in, but
Okay. Yeah, I can forward you this particular thing. But using the betterments they're scheduled at now, the assessment is that all that stuff will be covered and paid for, even if we don't increase that betterment fee. going forward. From what I understand, and I'll double check on it, but I think she still used that $22,000. I'll look at it and I'll send you that.
All right, so that's
We
what I,
we can evaluate that as its own beast, you know, because there's a bunch of different things we'd have to get into with that, but I'll send you what she sent.
yeah, for
And I
me,
think
it's
it
just
does
O and M, I
cover-
understand the O and M, yeah, we have to get to it, that takes care of that, we haven't really got to the final number yet, but that I understand. We've been talking about those numbers, it's that delta of capital costs. Last time we talked, we had a shortfall of $10 million. If given what we had available in capacity that isn't sold. So that means we either adjust the betterments to cover that. If we stop this town meeting issue, that's what you're telling me. That to me is that's where the 10 million get covered. It's a 10 million here and there's a 10 million there. They wipe each other out if you have the town meeting appropriation, which is what I think is right. If we're going to pick that, if our users future and it's actually future, it's all future users. So we have to, if we don't do that, the betterment, instead of going up to X to cover the 20 million shortfall. So we have a 30 million shortfall. 20 million is to be done by the users, future users, because we can't derive any more betterment money out of people who've already paid the betterment. So we have that shortfall. And so we're going to have to, we have to have the betterment rate cover the 20 million that isn't already in the betterment, whatever that number, that delta is. There's still 10 million out there, as far as every number we've looked at, that we got to come up with. And if we can't do it through the 1/3, 2/3 town issue that we've been talking about, then it's got to be added into the betterment rate. So the betterment rates, in my opinion, go from 25, 6, 7,000 up to 35.
Yeah, I think right now we're currently at 22.
Sure.
So we might have to go to 26, 30, whatever that number happens to be. I get where you're going.
So that to me is the big enchilada. It's not meant to be here. And that's why I want to make sure we stress that this number is really just O and M, looking at what we have, and we can take care of that pretty reasonably. It's going to be a big number, but it's one of 12 years, 13 years in the making. It's very justifiable from that perspective, but I don't want to lose sight of the 10 million discrepancy and how we deal with that. That is a huge number. And
Yes, and I think it's gonna, just looking forecasting, I think that's gonna take a little while for it to work its way through in terms of determining town meeting, whether that 1/3, 2/3 is gonna play into this.
yeah, it could be next. I was trying to get a placeholder for the special town meeting. Maybe that's premature, but if we're saying right now that in the next 3 years, we have more than enough adequate betterment income to cover our capital cost debt, then that's good.
So
Right now-
the only thing that we cannot cover is the fourth tank and the leaching fields. So those are the two, because we haven't sold that fourth tank off. So that's where that 419 comes into play. And then the leaching fields, starting with fall in July, the first payment is 426,000 and change. And then year over year, it goes between 401 and 403.
And so that is the delta unpaid by betterments we have in our hand, or will have in our hand over time.
Yes, we don't have them right now.
Okay, so we need to come up with a betterment number sooner. We can't keep borrowing from our operational side, to pay the
Well,
betterments.
the
right?
problem is no one else coming on right now to pay those betterments. So you're looking, say you came up with a number and it's 30,000. We don't have anyone signing on new.
That's what I'm getting at. So what we have to do is have a open for business sale, like ASAP. most of those people should be. They're on the sewer, they have septic systems not working, whatever, there should be a bunch of those. What we talked about, is it 300 or 400 a number? Something like that. And then we have others. Now, the moratorium could be a problem for that, because if you can't build a new house or you can't build a new building, you can't get water hookup. I think we need to go back to the water department on those houses, those lots, whatever they are, and say, we can't have this. It's another question. We need a variance procedure for us. And we're gonna go out to business and start selling capacity like today, tomorrow. Because over time, that 400,000 one year, then 500 the next year, 600. If we're not paying it off and we're borrowing from someplace else, I don't think that's correct. It just gets us a deeper hole when we're in. We're okay now, but we're not perfect.
Yeah, we have to, as a long-term plan, start getting more users tied into the system. And to your point, we can start selling today, but even at that rate, it's going to take a while for those to actually come to fruition and help with our debt.
So
We have an immediate need. FY25 is where we are right now, that we're short, somewhere in the range of $925,000 right now, and starting tomorrow, there's no new betterments coming. This is a need that we have like today, that we have to start addressing this with our rate increase and user fees to offset our immediate needs. And then long-term plan of bringing in more betterments and having you, when you said they're going out of business sale, you gotta come in now, or we're gonna offer this to other people.
Right.
Also, we're looking at increasing some of our septic costs, so that, people coming in will get some more revenue from that. We started taking more septic, which is helping out with our revenue stream. And we're gonna be looking at billing the town offices for all their sewer usage. The water department started billing for the water usage in town. So we have to follow up with billing the same departments for the sewer usage. So that'll help as well.
and that's all in arrears too. We're gonna be dealing with.
And we can try, but as far as how that will play out, it's hard to say. We can certainly go down each one of these avenues independently or together, but they have to be addressed long-term to help kind of soften some of this blow. But essentially, we're looking at a shortfall right now that we have to pretty much, the next billing cycle for the water bill, get these rates established and out to the users. And that's what this discussion October 2nd is going to be.
I'm gonna go back to the beginning a little bit, because we have 1.8 million is our budget now, and we're collecting 1.3 and revenues from operation and maintenance, right? No, from betterments.
No, from
From user fees, I'm sorry, user fees, right?
fees and
So
consumption. Thank you.
that again, the budget shortfall, the 506,000 here that's under this, that is O&M budget shortfall, right? So
Yes.
we actually have taking O&M. We have 1.3 coming in every year, and we have the budget is 1.8. So there's the $500,000 shortfall, right? So we're really looking for a 500, just 1 year. This 1 year, we're looking for a $500,000 rate increase, something that generates $500,000 this year at a minimum.
To cover our
Cover that,
operating budget.
right.
But now, what do you do with your debt shortfall?
Right. So we have a debt shortfall, and that number gets back to the betterments I thought we were talking about. So the betterments,
So
That was like 1 point.
So the betterments that are coming in right now are betterments that are covering phase one, phase two, and a portion of the upgrade.
So this 419 should be that number. Whatever debt service we have right now, right? Should be in that 419. So we should be covering that with the betterments we have now.
No. The betterments we have coming out cover a point, but that's what the betterments don't cover
All right, so the overall shortfall debt is 419.
on the tanks.
And then July 1 of 2026, we need to pay the leaching field 426,000 and change.
So that becomes a total of 800 and some odd thousand. $845,000 in debt that the betterments do not cover at this point.
And this analysis that we're talking about is going to raise that amount every year or whatever through the rates that the,
It's gonna have to until we come up with a different source to cover that debt shortfall. And that would be betterments. New betterments.
And they're looking into having that charge code for everybody to absorb that, to see if that's something that we can do. But otherwise, we need to come up with the debt somehow.
So if that 1/3, 2/3 thing were to flow through town meeting and be accepted, then that shortfall of 850,000 a year would be divided. Well, less than by a third, I guess, by the users.
right. So there's 929,000, if that's the right number, that's the end. That's debt that's after O&M and shortfall and betterments. We go down by 300 and something thousand dollars.
So in that 925 is just for the third tank. It doesn't include the leaching fields.
Yeah, that was what.
Yeah.
So I go back to the 10 million, the SRF, are they 20-year note?
Most of them are, there's a few that are 30, the leaching field is 20.
Yeah, but I mean, going forward, yeah, that's what I thought. So
You weren't the betterment loan. The betterment loans, those were 30 years.
Yeah, phase 1 and 2. Yeah.
That's still true to anybody that's coming on now, or the 20-year payback.
we had special legislation for 30. The betterments have a 30-year payback. I guess that's
But
better.
anybody new coming on, I was just curious.
Yeah, that's,
I think that's still a 30.
Okay,
Does that sound accurate?
I-
No.
okay, Lane might know better. Where did the $3 million go from the mall for their betterment? They paid that in full. Was that used to pay for the infrastructure to get everything?
They paid some upfront, and that was used, I believe, to get the Marion Drive.
Okay,
portion
all that infrastructure then.
initially, and some design costs and stuff, I think. And then until all the loans started coming through, it kind of floated things till the rest rolled in.
Okay.
But they're only halfway with that, right? Does that sound accurate?
I know that they had paid $3 million and half of it was already allocated to us. And then the other portion is being allocated over time.
Okay,
so, I mean, if you take, this numbers get real big quick.
Oh, they do.
I mean, we should be And the bigger the betterment, the harder it is to sell.
Yeah, it's a catch-22.
Well, we have to be able to explain, I think, we have to be able to explain where the rest of that indebtedness is going to be picked up. It cannot be uses. It just, it would be,
It's a big ask.
I mean, we're talking about big asses to deal with this.
Oh, yeah. And it's a town-wide benefit that, even though the users on the system have benefited greatly by having the sewer system, clean water, clean sewer. You can see how it's helped out with the Nook public safety, just walking around after a rainstorm, and swimming out there, cleaned up everything. So there's a huge benefit to the users. But there's also other people in town that benefit greatly from the sewer system. It's allowed businesses to develop on the 3A corridor. It's allowed swimming at Gray's Beach on a regular basis. It's allowed the boating and harbor to grow.
Shellfish.
It's allowed shellfish to grow. So there's multiple benefits that have benefited the entire community. And some of these capital improvements, capital investments that we've made in the system so far in the later phases are being asked to be absorbed by just the users. And it's some big numbers that benefit the whole community.
Right.
And you're asking 1,653 users to absorb at this point 100%, unless we can do something at town meeting to get back to the original
Scope, which
scope, which was a 1/3, 2/3 scope, decided by the sewer commission.
The
back in the
users.
day.
2/3 and town, the rest of the town chipping in the other third.
But that, even if that were to work its way through the system, we have a delay for that to all come into play. If everything goes the right direction, we still have to take care of being able to function as a department and be able to pay our debt and bills. So we need a short-term solution with some long-term solutions to start absorbing some of the impact.
So I'm proposing that, so we have this for discussion, what I come up with, keeps coming up with the same general area number. With the shortfall is right now, the capital shortfall right now is around 300,000 something. It's gonna grow. And when we add in the leaching fields and all, it's gonna grow by
426.
426 to 500,000 range. And we start, depending on how the interest rates go and all this stuff. So we're looking at $800,000 in capital costs that's unaccounted for after the betterments that are currently in place. So 800,000. Okay, so
Unmet need.
Yeah.
925.
well, some of
Oh,
that's
I
gonna,
see.
so I'm just talking,
Separate the budget
I keep going back, I really think it's important that O&M is here, capital's here. If we start mixing them.
Yep.
We're gonna get in a mess.
So yeah, that
So-
number then is 845,
Yeah.
865.
Yeah, I was at 9. So if you take that number, use 850, divided by 960. It's 885. That's the kind of,
What's the 960 refer to?
I'm using 960 as the available open betterment
Okay.
use. I mean,
Yeah.
each SRU, I mean, standard.
So when I counted from all of the spreadsheets I have, I think I was at 3,022 ERUs that are currently
Used,
used or have been bought,
so say them again.
3,022. We can confirm that when I go back to.
So just let me, I'm back into these numbers. So we got 30. You have 3,022. And if you take 700,000, which is the capacity, right?
Mhm.
Divided by 330 is only 2,121. So that either says we're over capacity, which doesn't make sense. We're not there, which is why we did this calculation. It didn't make sense to me. So we really have, the dilemma is 330 as a betterment fee, betterment adjustment number for an ERU, and actual flow are off by 50% is what it comes out to. Something like that.
Okay.
I just have to interject, they do have another meeting in here, so we have to wrap up by like 5:00.
Okay.
So, what this, somewhere around $30,000, $32,000 is what I think the new betterment fee is going to be as soon as we possibly can get it out there, which is a $10,000 increase after 30 years or 25 years, which is not a huge. So I think we have to have that number in our discussion to show how we're offsetting. We're keeping the O&M and the capital costs separate. We haven't figured it all out yet, but it's critical, I think, for the users that they understand that that's a separation.
Mhm.
Okay. So when we get to the discussion in October, then we're going to come up with some rates that we've been talking about before. And those are,
We're gonna have one more, we're gonna try and have one more meeting before that,
okay.
next week, actually. If everybody's available.
Can we just make a motion on the letter?
Yes, we will. Yep.
All right, so that's, those are my comments.
Should be, are you okay with that letter? As written? Is there anything you want to tweak it down?
Third, fifth, that's the third, not GH.
Oh, yeah. What are you?
I think for the purposes of what we're trying to get into, this will do it. I have, as we just talked about, I have concerns about the mixing.
Oh, yeah.
I really have concerns about
Yeah.
that. But for the purposes of getting the meeting scheduled and having a discussion, which is the goal, I'll make a motion to approve this letter as written with that minor change.
I'll second that in the discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Let's take care of that. And another meeting. Do you want to meet next Tuesday? Or,
Tuesday's better for me. Yeah.
okay.
Next
We just-
Tuesday?
No, hold on, just say that without. I am getting swamped lately. So.
That would have been one of our normal meeting nights anyways, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Next Tuesday? Second and third, first and third?
Yeah, tomorrow would be a regular one.
Oh, tomorrow, okay, tomorrow.
So the 24th, that works for me. 4 o'clock?
No, if
4:30?
it's Tuesday, 4:30 usually.
Yeah. That's still an hour here too, so other people.
I'll have to check the calendar.
There's several different rooms, so we'll figure it out. And if that's the case, and someone's gotta be in here, we could make it a little earlier. Is that okay with you? 4 o'clock or something?
Yeah,
Yeah, just because we're piggybacking rooms.
no, if we can do that, can I keep this?
Anything further you want?
Gene, if you just have. The number of the betterments, the final sheet you have, because I think it's changed since we last talked. I just want to see how that out of business, how the curve goes out, the betterments we have and how it diminishes over time so that I can try to fine tune the number I think we need back into a number. But right now, I think if we get $32,000 and I'm using 900, so this is what, based on the number of stuff, we don't have 960 in terms of ERUs. But in terms of actual capacity flow, we do. So even use 1,000. If we have 1,000 betterments to sell at 22, at 32,000. So it's 32 million. There we go, 30 million. See, keep coming back. So the betterments take care of the 30 million. So we're gonna have that money come in because we're gonna start selling it. And we're gonna actually go out. Keith wants revenue, tax revenue, but the town needs tax revenue. I'm hearing about things like, I mean, it's not, I don't know how public it is, but I mean, it is public. Overrides coming up. We can't be fighting other departments for overrides, but we have a big one of our own. So I just don't want to be in a position where we're not aware of how big a number we got to deal with. That's without any help. Okay. If we have some help, that goes back down to 22, 23, 24,000. It's easy to sell that. But we still have to have a business plan, again, with the selectmen and the Keith and everybody saying, okay, we have to do some work on this. We're gonna need some planning. We're gonna need the plan. I think the planning department's gonna have to help us. How do we maximize lots that are sitting there with an EIU of 10 and we could give them 50? Yeah. And open the door. People, so we're not talking about the anti-growth thing. We're talking about just people who are on the system now. How do we get this revenue up quickly? So we're not sitting here worrying about this every year or every 6 months. I don't want to be there. You don't want to be there. All right. Make a motion, adjourn.
Second that, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay.